Hello and welcome to the Answers Yes. When I was growing up, well, I guess I was almost a young adult at the time, I heard Mark Victor Hansen speak in public for In-N-Out Burger. It was a big corporate deal. And he said, "What you believe is what you will achieve." And I was about 17, 18 at the time, and I've lived my whole entire life feeling that way. And, it's brought me a lot of success and happiness and, a lot of tough times too and challenges along the way. But what I found when I look back, all these things that I set out to do, I've been able to achieve them in one way or another or scrap the idea because it wasn't a good one. And nothing's ever really stopped me. And people always ask me, like, well, why do you keep going? I said, there's just this belief I have in my system. And today's guest, Mike Fallet, helped me write a book recently. And I realized Mike hadn't been on my show yet. So, Mike, welcome to the show, buddy.
It's an honor to be here. I guess what? I mean, I've been sitting in the queue for what, 9 months ready to go. You didn't invite me, but I'm here finally.
What a dirtbag, right?
Thrilled to be here, man.
You're one of those guys that in your business, you're able to connect with your clients. Where, like, literally, I feel guilty. Like, how come I haven't had Mike on? Because I felt like I built such a great relationship with you in a very short period of time, got to know you, vice versa. And you were really all in on learning who I was as part of your business.
Yes, and I think it comes back to my love for true stories. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Well, I guess since my adult life, 23 years old. I started my, investment career there and started to make my way. And I have this love for entrepreneurs and
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship in general. But, I struggled so much and I figured out like, what are my strengths and weaknesses? I realized that my ultimate strength is just my love for true stories and documentaries. So I
Mm-hmm.
was able to combine that with business and get to know my clients on a deeper level and help them, convey their message to a broader audience and help them maybe elevate their brand, their credibility, and help a lot of people along the way.
Well, I think it's your love for what you're doing that, like you said, you found your zone and your love for what you're doing. You come across as authentic and real and caring, like I said, for the client. Because after I got off the phone with you, I'm like, wow, I just made a new friend here. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, I think that's how it has to be. I mean, people look at book creation as this difficult process that, it's always talked about in a way that, oh, this is so tough. Oh my God, I'm writing a book. It is so painful. Well, I thought to myself whenever I was writing my first book, what if I could create this process that is actually fun to bring your book to life? Fun to actually get up on stage and talk about something that was easy to do. And sometimes it's difficult to talk about your past, but what if I can make it easy for people? And easy usually turns into fun if you do it the right way. So that was my intention going into the ghostwriting atmosphere.
Mike, let's backpedal a little bit. You found your zone, and the purpose of this show, the answer is yes, is to get people to hear our stories and how we found our pathway to where we're at today. Kind of that ultimate happiness as entrepreneurs and business owners are working in a great career that we love. Can you tell us what your path was? And I know you said as a young adult you found where you were, but were you an entrepreneur as a kid? Did you have a paper route? Did you sell gum on the
Oh,
playground? Or were you just a good student, went home to mom and dad every day and cleaned the house?
oh no. I was a BC student my whole life. Whatever I needed to get that low B or high C, that's all I cared about. I hated school. I didn't read. I didn't write. I hated school. So, I was a hockey guy. I thought I was going to become an NHL player like everybody else. I was not that good. So don't even think that like, oh, maybe he was even close. I wasn't even close. But when I was 16, 17 years old, I thought I was going to join the Navy. My dad was a Navy guy. My grandfather was Navy. My other grandfather was Army. And my dad was always talking about these stories of training with the SEALs. And
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't a SEAL. He trained with this program called SEER School, which a bunch of SEALs were part of. And I hear that. I'm like, man, that sounds like me. All right, I'm going to go do that. Well, 17, 18 years old, my dad said, you know what? You're not going. I don't believe in anything that's happening. So I don't want you going over there and fighting.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it kind of was like a shot to the arm, like, hey, man, start looking around for what you're going to do in your life. So at the time, I was working for a guy who is a convenience store owner, and I was working there as a cashier. And I wasn't cashing my paychecks at all because I was obsessed with saving money.
Hmm.
Like my scarcity mindset was I wasn't going to cash my paychecks. So I'm 16, 17, almost 18, haven't cashed any of my paychecks since I started working.
Wow.
The owner comes down from, his office, and I would see him every once in a while, driving the fancy cars, dating the pretty women, just this very, very confident individual. And he came to me one day. He goes, "Are you the guy that's not cashing your paycheck?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend it." He goes, "You're throwing off the books for everybody." You don't even realize what you're doing. He goes, "You tell me you have over $5,000 or whatever it was saved up." And he's like, that's unheard of for anybody that I've ever had. I've had hundreds of employees. Let me start teaching you about mutual funds and investing. So he kind of took me under his wing and started giving me magazines and helping me out a little bit. Told me to go to school and get a finance degree. So here I was, 18 years old, about to graduate. I'm, "Mom, can I, apply to this school?" "Oh my God, that's so much money, but let's see if we get approved for the funding. So I go to this school, and 3 years in, I'm a senior in college. Okay. And I'm still working for him all through college, still working at the convenience store. He's always promising maybe a job whenever I'm about to get out of college. He's like, "Hey, I got you taken care of. Don't worry." But at 2022, he gives me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that's the moment that my eyes started to open to what real entrepreneurship was.
Yeah.
I always thought I wanted to be this guy in a clean office, suit and tie, carrying a briefcase. I thought that's what I wanted. But when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that's when I was like, this whole investing, becoming an entrepreneur, understanding the cash flow quadrant, it's starting to make sense.
Yeah.
So I went out and got my real estate license, became an agent, bought my first real estate property, 4-unit building, and I was off and running. Here I was for the first time, just obsessed with reading, personal development, business in totality. Like, I just loved it. But I got cocky because I kept thinking, man, I love this real estate stuff, but my real passion is creating businesses from the ground up. So I started 4 different businesses, businesses that I had no business even getting involved in, but, data and analytics, software, a rewards program, events company, all major failures. Then I got really simple and I said, okay, what can I do for the world right now just by myself? Okay, I can create a direct-to-home dog product service similar to BarkBox. I was in severe debt, so I still had to get a corporate job, but I created this direct-to-home dog product service that made some money. People started looking at me like I was this savant, like, "Whoa, you're making some money with this startup business. Can you teach me about this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll create a consulting program. I'll help you out with the startup, first 3 steps: simplicity, demand, understanding your message. Here, I can help you out." And so that's whenever I said, okay, why don't I make this a little easier for me to convey to people? Why don't I write a book? The girl I was dating at the time was an editor. I said, I want to write this because I started writing like daily journals and blogs and all that. So I was starting to get into the habit of writing, and I gave it to her. She edited it. I put it up on Amazon, turned it into a bestseller, and my life changed overnight. Wow. 2015, right around there. And that's whenever it was like, okay, now I'm this author, best-selling author and entrepreneur, but I didn't have a lot of money coming in from that side business or even the book. So it was like the jump off period. Do I go all in on the business? Well, do I do the consulting? Well, a lot of people were asking about startup businesses, but also how to write a book. Why don't I do this whole process to help people get their book done? And since then, we've done 300 and some books, 265 bestsellers. And it just was the fight or flight mode. I'm sitting there 2015. Which direction do I go? Yeah. And my love for entrepreneurship was too strong for me to stay cling to the wall at the corporate job or even too small of a business that was somewhat safe to do.
Yeah. Go back to you said you had 4 businesses that were major failures.
Terrible, man. Right? Terrible.
Well, tell me what that means. We can all guess what that means, but what's interesting about that is your next part of the story talks about you're all in on this next shift, right? And it's hard for people to go all in after even one major failure, right? And by the way, as you know, you've got to put it all out there to find success somewhere. I mean, there's no reward without some risk somewhere, but tell us what really major failures look like in your world.
Just want to double check. We're recording this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good deal. Because sometimes I've been on to that. Yeah, and it doesn't say the record button. I'm like, oh, we got to make sure we got this. But those, you nailed it. The gun shy philosophy. Once you miss or get hurt one time,
Yeah.
you stop shooting anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I've realized working with a lot of entrepreneurs, the people who make it are the ones who are going through these crazy ups and downs, but they just never stop. And I had this true love to just stay in the game because there are a lot of people I have met and friends that I started out with, by the way, that failed one time. One time. Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah, okay, I got you. Robert Kiyosaki talked about how 4 out of 5 businesses failed. I remember reading this in one of his books.
Yeah.
And so he had a foolproof plan of just creating 5 businesses. And I kept thinking to myself, if this is my hero, Robert Kiyosaki was my hero, by the way. And I kind of modeled my whole business off of that book, ghostwriting, self-publishing, the whole shebang based off of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And if he failed 4 times and then succeeded, well, who the hell am I to say, once is enough?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was just the love and the need to keep doing it, because if I gave up, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I have this thing called the mirror test. If you can walk out the door and look at yourself in the mirror and be proud of who you are, and you're doing everything you possibly can, and you are living your life, your life, underline that you're doing everything your way, then you can sleep good at night. You can walk outside and you can have your shoulders back, standing tall. And there was a time whenever I was like teeter-tottering of like, do I keep doing it? Everybody around me says I'm a failure. My friends and family don't believe in me anymore. Like, when you fail, you lose faith in yourself. Everyone else loses faith in you. So it's almost like you just have to keep proving yourself. Like, I see something. I see it. Nobody else does. I have to stay at it. And that fortitude, or that gumption, whatever you want to call it, is what defines your character.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you lose something so obviously in front of everybody, it does take a little bit of a illogical approach. Like, okay, well, I'm going to go at it again. And then eventually you start to have little wins, and then you start to prove to yourself that you're a winner. And now that you're a winner, you have to show other people that you're a winner and keep doing it. And there's a great phrase that Jordan Peterson always talks about when it comes to the etymology of the word character. If you go back to it, character actually means chisel in Greek.
Mm-hmm.
So the way you build your character is actually get chiseled through life. And when you first start off, you're doing so many things wrong. You don't know it, right? You don't know who to hang out with. You don't know who to listen to. You don't know what books to read. You don't know where you're going. You don't know your target. You don't know your target audience. You don't know how to dress. You don't know who you are yet. But as you fail and you keep going through and chiseling yourself out and becoming this rock format or form of yourself, then you become your own hero, if you will. Like, you become the next version. People start to see that. They see the transformation. You believe in yourself more. Other people start to believe in yourself more. You have this momentum that you carry throughout the day. Your energy changes. And so it becomes a little easier if you just stay at it. I know it's a little hard in the beginning, but I think that if you're over the 5 or 6 year mark of a business, you have so much equity in the game that people now know you for something. And if you don't get to that 5 or 6 year mark, nobody's going to remember you except for the person who tried and failed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. The failure is almost a part of the formula of success. When you talk about that chisel, right, and that character building, and taking your hits along the way, and developing that grit to overcome, not only to prove it to yourself, but prove it outwardly to your fan base or potential customers that, hey, I'm serious about this. I'm going to push through, right? It takes time, and people want to see you go down that road a little bit, further before they throw their money in or buy your product or invest in what you're doing. So it's interesting when you look at it as a formula.
Well, don't you have to realize like what not to do before you know what to do?
Yeah.
Jim, I swear to God, I sat in an investor meeting in front of, super successful investors in Pittsburgh, which, looking back, I don't know how successful they really were,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm in a board meeting, or you call